Vasudevaya. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 11, entitled Lord Ramchandra Rules the World. Text 18 and 19. The narrator of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Shukadev Goswami, has given a very condensed, essential summary of the great scripture Ramayana of Valmiki Muni in this one chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Taking some of the most essential lessons that the Lord revealed through this incarnation. The last few verses over these past days have described Sita's entering into the earth. For many, this is a very difficult part of Ramayana to hear, to think about, or to speak about. And it is very common that people who discuss Ramayana very conveniently do not address this particular part of the Lord's Leela. But here we find Shukadev Goswami in the vast book of Ramayana, tens and thousands of slokas. He's only speaking one short chapter, and there's about 4 or 5 verses of that chapter about this only. He could have easily left this part out. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Nigama Kalpataro Galitam Balam. It is the ripened fruit, the essence, the cream of all the knowledge of all the scriptures, of the Vedas, of all the scriptures throughout creation for all time. Parikshit Maharaj had 7 days to live. Shukadev Goswami brought the most essential essence, highest teachings, and spoke only that in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in Lord Ram's Leela, he's bringing a concluding focus on Sita's entrance into the earth. We may ask why. It's confusing. It's heartbreaking. It has made people into atheists, this particular section. It has made people angry at God. In order to understand the truth we must hear from those who have realized the truth. Otherwise, human intelligence alone has no capacity to understand what is beyond material energy. The Lord's pastimes are divine. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvata tyaktva deham punara janma naiti mameti surajuna. Krishna tells us that the divine, transcendental nature of my appearance and activities in this world, if we simply understand them in truth, we never have to take birth in this world but attain the supreme perfection of his abode. The spiritual platform of consciousness is beyond the senses, beyond the mind, beyond the intelligence, beyond the ego, beyond the grasp of our own abilities to comprehend. We must use our senses, our mind and our intelligence with proper motivation and with proper guidance in order to understand. But ultimately, the real comprehension only comes through grace, through the grace of the Lord. Yegatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. The Lord reveals himself according to our surrender, through grace. And when we see through the eyes of that vision, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, the vision of love, then we see everything as it is. Therefore, this evam parampara praptam, the concept of parampara or disciplic succession, is self-realized souls who live by the highest virtues of compassion and wisdom. They have preserved the teachings in their original essence over time. Shukadev Goswami, who learned from Vyasadeva, who learned from Narada, who learned from Brahma, who heard from Krishna. Shukadev Goswami, he's speaking about Sita's entering into the earth. Why Ram would banish her after she did everything for him. Recently we were in Rameshwaram for our South Indian Yatra. We discussed the absolute purity, chastity, and the highest realm of divine love that was personified by Sita. Sri Ram was banished to the forest for 14 years due to the influence of Kaikeyi, his stepmother. The banishment was only for him. Sita volunteered to go with him. Lord Sri Ram tried to convince her not to come. It would be torturous for a princess who was born with the greatest luxuries and protection and raised her whole life in that environment. To be living in a jungle. No houses. Ram vowed he wouldn't even go into a village or a town for 14 years. He would remain exclusively in dark, deep jungles. No break. Wearing tree bark. Not eating any food that's prepared or cooked nicely, just herbs and roots and whatever you can find in the trees or in the ground. But Sita, her love for him, she insisted. She would not take no for an answer. She had to go with Ram because her life was for him, for his pleasure. And despite every type of temptation, every type of threat, she never once even considered in her mind any of Ravana's proposals. She was alone. She was being threatened by torture and death. She was being seduced with luxuries, power, pleasures beyond conception. It is not that Sita Devi somehow or other curbed her inclinations for these things to remain faithful to Sri Ram. There was never even in that entire almost year even a fraction of a second where she considered in her conscious or subconsciousness anything but the loving service of Sri Ram. And Lord Ram, to glorify her for all time to come, rejected her. When the war was over and she came back to Sri Ram, Hanuman blissfully gave her the news. Vibhishan brought her back after arranging a nice bath for her. And Ram indifferently said, "You can go anywhere you want. I can no longer be with you. You've been with another man." Hanuman, Vibhishan, Lakshman, Sita, everyone was weeping. "Ram, how can you do this? After all she's done for you." Sita told Lakshman, "Get wood, start a fire. I will enter the fire. I will not live without my beloved Ram." They just fought this entire war just to get Sita back. And Lakshman looked at Ram. You're not going to allow this to happen." Ram shook his head. "Yes, get the wood. Start the fire." She was weeping, crying. Circumambulated the fire, circumambulated Lord Ram, and spoke. "If for even a moment I was not thinking of you with love and devotion, let this fire burn me. And if I have completely remained faithful in my love for you, then what can this fire do?" and she walked right into the fire. It was a blazing, huge fire. She totally disappeared. No one could see her. She was consumed. At that point, everybody fell to their knees crying. Even Lord Ram could not control his emotions. He wept. Sita was gone. After some time, Agni Dev, the presiding deity of fire, appeared with Sita, who had no burns. She had a celestial dress that was fresh and clean. She even had beautiful garlands of flowers that were fully blossomed and fresh as she came out of this blazing fire. And Agni Dev testified for Sita's absolute purity of her love and devotion. And Ram and Sita were reunited. And Sri Ram explained, he had no doubts about Sita. But he wanted to glorify her love for all time to come. He wanted people to understand the purity of her love. He wanted so that nobody forever could ever have a doubt about the Supreme Goddess of Fortune. They returned to Ayodhya. He became king. She was queen for many years. But then some very ordinary type of man was having an argument with his wife, and he raised a doubt about Sita. And Ram heard it. Because in those days, sometimes great kings would dress like ordinary people and just mix with people without them knowing who you are, so they could hear what's really happening, what people are really talking about. Sometimes leaders, they have their own little circles of ministers or advisors, and they're really out of touch with the people. But great leaders, they don't control people. They serve the ordinary people. Like their own children. And in order to serve, you have to understand what's happening, what they're feeling, why they're feeling, how they're feeling, what I could do about it. That's the way Ram was with all of his people. So he heard this. From an external perspective, he told Lakshman, Sita likes to go on trips, bring her to Valmiki Muni's ashram for a trip. Sita was really excited about it. But then Lord Ram said, when you get there, tell her that she has to stay. She will not come back. Lakshman was in agony. How could he do this? His life, his soul, his everything was only to see Ram and Sita happy together. But he was a lover of Ram. Sita was so happy. She was in the chariot. When they were in the forest, he told her that you cannot return. You must stay here. And Lakshman witnessed the absolute breaking of her heart. But ultimately, although she lived for Ram and only Ram, when she was in the Ashokvan of Ravana, it was just for a little less than a year. And she always had hope. The only thing that kept her alive was the hope that Ram would come to rescue her at any moment. But now there was no hope. Now she was being told, in this incarnation, you will never see him again. Again, Sri Ram revealed the purity of love. Love is not about enjoying each other. It's about serving the heart of the beloved. In this incident, Lord Sri Ram was actually, out of his infinite love for Sita, was blessing her with the realization of the highest experience of the ecstasy of love, which is love and separation. And Srila Prabhupada explains in these purports previous to this verse that separation from a loved one in this world can be extremely painful. Could be the most painful thing in all of creation. Someone who we have given our heart, our life to, in love, when they die, or when they're away for long periods of time, can be unconsolable grief. But in that separation, in this world, it's usually only then when we only then when we really realize how much a person meant to me. We have a tendency to take each other for granted. But when that person dies, and you start thinking of all the things you just forgot all about. And it's completely to the forefront of your consciousness how much that person means to me, how much I need that person. But they're gone. From a spiritual perspective, nobody's ever gone from existence. Nahanyate hanyamane sarire, the soul is eternal. Never dies. It's just through the facility of a physical body, we no longer have that relationship or communication. On the spiritual level, we have an eternal relationship. The body is a sacred facility by which we can facilitate exchanges between souls. So when the body's dead, body's actually always dead. It's alive when the soul is in it. When the soul leaves the body, then the body, we understand its value because that was a medium by which we could communicate in this world in a very, very special way. There's sorrow, but there's also joy, because we know that the soul has gone to the spiritual world, or a very, very good place. So we jubilant for the person who we love, but we cry because that wonderful facility of exchanges is temporarily separated from us through the body. But the Lord teaches. Jayadvaita Maharaj was speaking about this the other day in class. On the spiritual platform, there are two ways, primarily, in which the Lord reciprocates love with his devotees. Sambhog and Vipralambha. In union and in separation. And the dynamics of how the two embellish each other's experience is a very profound philosophy. After separation from a loved one, the union or meeting becomes even more pleasing. So, meeting is enhanced by separation on the spiritual platform. But higher even than that is the separation itself, is a profoundly deep form of meeting. Because in relation to God, God is always present. We are never separate from God. He's within our hearts. He's within every atom. He's everywhere. He hears our every word, our every prayer, our every thought. And for those who love Krishna, Krishna's eternally, always reciprocating. And in separation, rather than our love going out toward the object of our love, it has no alternative than to go deeper and deeper and deeper within. The pain of separation brings our love so deep into our heart. And the Lord within the heart is embracing that offering of love. And we are feeling his embrace. And in this way, it's the highest ecstasy. On the material level, pain is pain. On the spiritual level, pain is pleasure. This is not some sort of masochism. This is something very real, something very deep. Because the pain is an offering of love that's very, very deep and in the spiritual world, all these varieties exist just to enhance the experience of loving exchanges. Everything is perfect. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam. Everything is full, complete. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the external reason of delivering souls, he left his mother and wife, Sachi and Vishnupriya. Vishnupriya was very young, and Sachi Devi was very old. These are the two types of people that really need protection, is very old people and very young people. He was the only husband and the only son. But so that people would respect his position and therefore hear his words and take shelter of him and be liberated from their sufferings by doing so, Lord Caitanya left them. On one level, we may say that he endured the pain of separation from his wife and mother, and they had to endure the pain of separation from him for the higher purpose of delivering, of bestowing mercy, kindness upon so many others. And that is true. But there's something far deeper. They were never separated. Sachi and Vishnupriya and the Lord himself entered into a deeper and, we can't say higher because it's already the highest. But within the highest, there's variations of rasa, or spiritual experience. And there was an even deeper experience of love in separation. Sachi and Vishnupriya were never separate from the Lord. The Lord is eternally existing in his name. And according to the love in which we chant his name, the Lord will personally be there to accept our love and shower his love upon us. Can we imagine how Vishnupriya and Sachi Devi were chanting the holy names after he left to never return? And the Lord provided Vishnupriya through one of his associates, a deity of himself that she worshipped. Practically 24 hours a day. Her love and separation was so deep, there was no possibility of her even sleeping. And the deity is not different than the Lord. So their agony was the highest ecstasy. On the spiritual platform, there's no agony. It's only a particular, what we think of as agony in the spiritual world is only a very deep, intimate form of ecstasy. Vipralamba Seva. And Vishnupriya was willing to, from an external perspective, she was willing to endure anything to serve the Lord's purpose, as was Sita. Krishna lived in Vrindavan for just about 11 years, having leelas with Nanda, Yashoda, the gopis, the gopas, and then boarding Akrura's chariot, he left. He said, "I'll be back." He didn't come back. He stayed in Mathura. Then went to Dwarka. And we read about the gopis' feelings of separation. They were mad in separation. When Krishna was living in Vrindavan, the gopis cursed the Creator for putting eyelids on their eyes. Because when they were standing right in front of Krishna, when they blinked their eyes, it seemed like 12 years of being away from Krishna. That was the subtle intensity of their love. Now you're sitting here in class. You've probably, since I began the class, you've probably blinked your eyes over 100 times. And because I'm telling you, you're thinking, yes, probably I did. But if I didn't tell you, how many of you have been thinking during this class that your eyes are blinking? We don't even notice it. It's called a nimesh. It's not even a 13th of a second when the upper part of the eyelid and the lower part touch in a blink, in an involuntary blink. And in the Sanskrit scriptures, that amount of time is called a moment. But for gopis, that involuntary blink seemed like 12 years. And that was when Krishna was standing right in front of them, inches away. And now he left. Why did he leave? Yes, he had to bear separation from them, and they had to bear separation from him because he had to do the work of his incarnation. Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupal, Salva, Kalyavana, all these asuras were there. So he was there to rescue the world, to speak Bhagavad Gita. Lord Caitanya went out to do the same, to slay the ignorance. Krishna did it with the Sudarshan Chakra and other weapons. Lord Caitanya did it with the holy names, transforming, as we saw in the drama, transforming Jagai and Madhai into saints. So Lord Caitanya took sannyas for the same reason Krishna left Vrindavan. And essentially for the same exact reason that Ram left Ayodhya. To liberate Ravana and Kumbhakarna and Indrajit and Viradha and all the others. But in the process, that love and separation brought them more intimately closer together. The Gopas and the Gopis of Vrindavan, 24 hours a day were absorbed in serving Krishna in separation. Their tears were offerings of ecstatic love. Said they cried the rest of their lives. But it wasn't like material separation, because it was bringing them, in reality, personally closer than ever before. And Lord Caitanya told that love of the gopis in separation is the highest expression of ecstatic spiritual experience. Billions and trillions of times beyond liberation, beyond nirvana, even beyond living in the planet with the Lord. is these feelings of love and separation. And in truth, Lord Ram wanted to share this experience with Sita. He wanted to share it within his own heart, and he wanted to share it within Sita's heart. She was in Valmiki's ashram, he was in Ayodhya. Were they ever separated for a moment? Not possible. He was constantly thinking of her, she was constantly thinking of her in the highest love, and in that consciousness they were together in truth.